Hey everybody, welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding, episode 39. Your host, Dusty HANSHAW, and of course myself, Ron Partlow. And on today's show, we have bodybuilder, father, businessman, and contest prep coach, Matt Jansen on It's Just Bodybuilding. How was that? That's better, eh?
I loved it.
Okay.
You
can leave that in too.
It hit me in the feels.
So Dusty, normally we kick off the show with a couple of jokes and then take a few minutes this time to discuss the obvious.
Yeah. Obviously, covering Luke's passing. And it was definitely, I think it's something that everyone wants to cover. It's been, I'm sure you've noticed. I've got my own views, but I've been really stoked to see the impact amongst people who did not know him, and that knew him from podcasts and bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Like, it's just cool to see that connection that people have.
Yeah, it would have been kind of impossible to not like Luke. I'm sure he could have found a way if he wanted you to not like him, but, he's just one of those guys. I got I don't have a Luke Sandoe toque or a MuscleWorks Worthington toque, but I do have a King's Gym toque. So I got that on today. Supportive, James and the boys, and, we're all thinking of you.
Yeah, no, it was tough. I had actually shot off to Denver to go have some fun, and it was my birthday. And I hit the ground, got in the car, and got the phone call. And it put a screeching halt to anything that I thought I was planning on doing.
Yeah. And
it was interesting because it's, it's something I've covered recently in social media and kind of getting it out there that this is something that I think a lot of people battle with and do so quietly. I mean, I know you text me and we're like, what the fuck? After I put some things up, because it's not really, I guess the thing that I hope will change from this is it is something everyone chooses to battle kind of in the dark. Even if you do so with professionals, you don't typically bring your close friends and things all the way into it. And I'm kind of hoping with this, that'll become more common, because that's why I had literally, 3 days before, opted to just kind of toss it all out there. And this hit home as to why that stuff needs to be out there, because there's so many people that are battling, and much like Luke, where they've got the personality that says cloud nine all the time, couldn't be happier, couldn't be more successful financially, family, all the bit. And the battle behind closed doors is just brutal.
Yeah. It's funny. I had several people, and myself crossed my mind too, but I had several other people just spontaneously say, sometimes, it's crazy how sometimes we lose the comedians. And then they mentioned Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just funny how many people mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
And, that's, one of the things I thought of too. It also, man, like, you put up a pretty heavy post, like you mentioned, before this. And I mean, I've been your friend for fucking years. You know what I mean? And I was kind of aware, bit of a way, we chatted a bit, but, like to read the post, I was like, shit, like I didn't even know you were off the grid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's also another thing that we have to watch for is the people that are in those tough spots. They're not allowing you to see it often. Right. They got someone covering their Instagram while they're taking a break, and they've got someone, they got an excuse for everything, or they got a story for why they're off unavailable for a day or two, So we have to be aware of that too. And then that was really important. And, I hat off to you for putting that post up. you know, and then I even had a couple of close friends like mention stuff to me like, oh yeah, you know, crazy about Luke. Like I remember a couple years ago, I was really like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, shit, you know, so we have to be, you know, we have to obviously try to talk more about it.
Right. Yeah. I think I mean, there's that aspect that you know, it was funny because you know me, I wing everything in life. Like I don't even want, you know, even the show or when we do videos for Mutant and stuff, I don't even want to know the plan. I like to show up and just roll, and that makes it me. This is the first episode we've ever done where I was like, all right, I need to get my thoughts together, how I want to approach this, just because it is such a heavy thing. And I tried to think really more about Luke and some things I knew about his personality that I hope that you, me, and everyone listening will kind of take on. Is everyone who knows him knows that Luke was one to over compliment, I mean, he knew everyone's greatness and would point it out to you on the regular. I mean, I don't know how well you knew Luke, but he's just one of those guys that, like, you know, I mean, here's a prime example is like me versus Luke. Like Luke I believe could win the Olympia. You know, if I go to the Olympia, it's because I bought a ticket. And it's one of those things but he would find a way to like reach out and compliment you. Oh, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And you're thinking, not to downplay what you do, because you know, but it's just funny because a guy like him who has, I mean, in my opinion, Luke has a lot, if not all of the same attributes I do as far as marketing and things like that. And he just also happens to be one of the best. So one thing I kind of noted was, I hope people will take him as an example of someone who needs to take a step back and truly give yourself credit and like give yourself credit for the things you do. I'm not one that doesn't. I mean, Luke knew he was fantastic. You know, I caught up on a lot of the episodes of Bodybuilding Bollocks and stuff over the weekend, and he would be the first to tell you he was nowhere near his potential yet. He argued with Fouad about it multiple times. Not argued, but was like, no, I'm not even close. So he knew how good he was, but I don't think he ever took it in. Like, he said, like,
always
wow.
It was always a critical barrier between how good he was and, you know, obvious reality. It's funny you mentioned that because, like, Luke, I looked at my IG message thread with Luke, and I went back to 2016. So we've been chatting on IG since then. And, you know, he was funny because I was like, wow, I noticed that every time I posted a stage pic, well, not every time, but like I just noticed there were a few moments where I'd put up a stage pic, you know, and I have like 5 good ones I like.
I have 3.
I put up a stage pic and he would comment like, "Fuck you look huge here."
Right.
Or like, you know, just a compliment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really?
Right.
Why would he, you know, like, you know, it's just one of those things, you know, he was always willing to give a friend a compliment, always willing to support someone, cheer you on, that sort of thing. You know, and it's probably a trait of people that are in that, a trait of a lot of people. There's a certain type of person that's having those dark issues, and that's a trait of theirs, you know. I don't know. I hope that, you know, obviously my feelings are like with, you know, James and the boys in England and all the people close to him, and, you know, the Redcon team and just everyone that really, really loved Luke and cared about him. I mean, obviously the fans really loved him and stuff, but those are the people that really knew him, like spent a lot of time around him. And so I just hope they're okay, and I hope something good can come out of it in a way, like maybe, like you said, someone will come to a friend or give you a call or shoot you a message or something, and you can, you know, maybe make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, I think that too, if anybody gets a chance and wants an inside view on Luke beyond the bodybuilding, Carly Thornton's been doing stories about their relationship, and not just their relationship together, but the 8.5 years that they knew each other, and showing his artistic work and just kind of going into who Luke was. Hey, she opted to do it, man. I mean, so much respect for her, because it was as real and raw as it could get. But I mean, I sat there like sunglasses on because I didn't want the dogs to know I was crying. and Donna's a judger, but literally cranking through those, and you just get a different view, and you realize even somebody, I mean, I knew Luke, but we weren't like friends, you know what I mean? I didn't call him all the time or anything. We were bodybuilding friends.
Yeah,
you
got along really well.
Yeah, when you get to know someone on that a level that she had him on, and she's nice enough to kind of pass it out there, you realize that bodybuilding was the least of his talents, like as far as what he brought into people's lives, So I started kind of watching his core group of people and looking at what they were talking about with him. Yeah. And everybody knew he was a god in bodybuilding, but it was so much bigger than that. And I feel like maybe he didn't know that, or none of us know that, because I know when you start looking, the description that I would have of you or something, or even someone, even someone like Luke is going to be, I don't know if I would mention bodybuilding because it's what we do. You know what I mean? Like, It would be down the list before, if I was talking about Ron, if someone said, tell me about Ron Partlow. Oh, and he bodybuilds. You know what I mean? Right. And I think that's the case with Luke that I really found was, even though he's one of the best on the planet, that was a long way down the list before you'd get into, oh yeah, he also is one of the best in the world at what he does for money.
Yeah. Well, the last show there, Fouad just did one with Ben and James, right?
Yep, I watched it.
And fantastic to hear from them. They both had a lot of great things to say, but it's they were the first ones to say, like, he did bodybuilding because he was good at it.
Right.
Like, he's like, oh, I can make a good living here, and I can be something, and I can, set things up, and I can, but it wasn't his first choice. Like, he was a drummer. Yeah. He was like, you know what I mean? There was lots of other things he loved, and yeah, it's just, we'll just try and always remember, I went back looking for the pictures I have with him from the expos and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, my main thought is like, fuck, I didn't take enough pictures with Luke.
Right.
I found like 6 or 7 good pictures, which I guess is like, that's
the
actually
amount of time
awesome.
We see each other, it's a ton, but I know what you mean.
I never did a little video with him, and
right.
I got a video with James and JP,
right.
But he was standing right fucking there.
Right. I think that's one of those things too, where you realize, I know for me, when you, the thing that threw me off, like, immediately, it was funny because I was getting into my hotel, we were checking in, and I literally just was like, I'm going to just sit here for a minute. And you know what hit me the hardest was, shit, we had plans. We had things we were going to do. We were going to do this year that the virus ended. So it was going to be next year. Like, we've been talking, JP and he and James and I are doing some training videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that hit me like immediately. Like, you just, I guess you're always aware that life is, on a clock. Yeah. But you really realize that when someone disappears and you actually had plans.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of those things where you're like, oh, that's never going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just a trip.
Fouad said that, where he was like thinking about the podcast. He's like, oh, there is no podcast.
Right.
Yeah. So just that type of thing. We should bring on our guest,
Absolutely.
Maybe finish this conversation off a little bit with him, and then get going to the other stuff.
And we have a lot of other stuff lined up too.
Yeah, we got a lot of other stuff. I know Luke would want us to talk about the other stuff.
Right.
Try to get a butt sex joke in there too.
Or serious.
Okay. Here's Matt Jansen. Let's bring him on. Sorry about the wait, Matt. We decided to open the show with a little bit of serious talk, obviously.
Yeah.
And so we ran a few minutes of that, but we figured we'd bring you in for, any words that you might have about Luke.
Yeah, for sure. You want me to just jump?
Yeah, we're live, man. We bring you right on.
Okay.
Just like the Tonight Show.
Yeah. Well, I obviously for the listeners, like, this is again, I think if anything else, it's just a reminder for us to be very intentional with our time. And be intentional with who we speak to, how we speak to them. I had the opportunity to work with Luke in 2017 from, I think it was April through the end of the year. And during that time, I try to form a bond with all my guys. I think that's a very important part of this. So obviously it just hurt to, to obviously get this news firsthand. I believe it was Thursday morning. And, I didn't know how we were going to open this up, but I wanted to share some of my most recent memories of him that things that I really enjoyed. So I was actually at the Arnold Classic last year when he competed. And Josh, I was hanging out with Josh. It was after the athletes meet and greet. We were getting onto an elevator. So it was Luke, Ben, Josh, and myself. And I think it was Josh asked Luke for one of his T-shirts. So, like, right then and there, we basically, the two guys, like, it was kind of like after the NFL game, they kind of, like, swapped shirts. Luke, like, felt so honored that Josh asked him for a shirt. I mean, like, he was, like, floored, like, so that was really cool just to, show his passion for bodybuilding right there. And also that he didn't think that he had arrived or was better than people. And, he kind of just, like, took in the moment. So that was really cool for me. Obviously, what he did the next day on stage, not only with his physique, but also the interaction that he had with Cedric. I think if we could remember Luke and, basically just what Luke was to us and that funny guy and, and how he kind of, just transcended bodybuilding in that moment. Like he didn't take it so serious, so I love that too. But my family, we experienced, so it's something that just hits close to home for me. I feel for his family. I feel for his kids. I hate that he was going through whatever he was going through. And like I said, just it's a way for us to be, if anything, if we could just learn to be more intentional, love each other, reach out to one another, and reaching out, it doesn't always have to be a two-way street. If you're thinking about somebody, don't be like, oh, well, I haven't heard from them in a while, I'm not going to say anything. That might be why they might need to be reached out to. Mm-hmm. So if anything, I think that's something that we can take from this.
I like what you said. Your first line was be intentional with your time and with how you speak to people. And, just generally trying to be kind and pleasant generally. You never know who you're encountering that day. You never know which person when we all get selfish and we all get like, I don't want to talk to me right now. And, sometimes we can brush people off and we have to try to make sure we don't miss that they're reaching out to us.
Right.
You know what I mean? We get so self-absorbed that, we get texts from people, hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you in a while. And we think, I'll text that guy back next week. Well, maybe that guy's texting you for a reason.
Yeah.
And, just keep that in our minds. Maybe it'll trigger a memory and you'll be like, oh shit, maybe I should get back to this guy right away.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. And, it's, like what I was saying, my heart really goes out to like all the guys in the UK that, really, really, really knew him, and all the men and women there in the bodybuilding scene. And what was working with them like? Like, you did some gym stuff, right?
Well, I started out doing his programming. And then after he did the Arnold here in the US, shortly thereafter, he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to take over everything. And I hate to say this, like his body was not in a good place when we worked together. He knew it. I knew it. We were just trying to make the best of it. So basically he prepped for a long time to win his pro card. I believe right after he won his pro card, he went on vacation, came back from vacation and got the Arnold Classic invite. So he really had no rest, no rebound, no off season, but he felt like he had to take it. And then since he did take it, he basically went into that season to try to make the best of it. But it was kind of like his body just wasn't being uber responsive. And again, like this is a story that I think so many of us can tell. At one point, I think like nothing we were doing was working. And I just told him to take the night off. I told him to eat as much food as he wanted. And just kind of shut his brain off mentally. And then I said, let's reconvene in the morning. So I think he ended up saying that he had like a large pizza and some brownies, this, that, and the other thing. He ended up losing 7 pounds, which was like the first time he lost weight in forever, and I think, again, like the mental stress of his body not responding could have been just that release that he needed. Mm-hmm. But again, Luke was, from a coaching perspective, he was always passionate about bodybuilding. He was always willing to learn more. Here I was. I mean, I'm not on Luke's level. I'm not on Luke's size, but we had really like genuine conversations about training, about methodologies, about, training to failure, just those common grounds that we always had. Another thing that we had a common ground on was that Dallas wanted to train with Luke. And so like there was that connection there, and obviously that training session never happened. But we talked about that because Luke looked up to Dallas, but yet there was that common respect there between both of them that really wasn't known because it just wasn't talked about. So that was a cool story. And then obviously, as you guys know, I think Aceto did a UK tour. I believe it was in January. Luke came to me and said, "Hey man, I have the opportunity to work with Chris. I met him, the past few weeks or whatever. He'd offered to do this or work with me in this way." And obviously I was a little, I felt like we were gaining good momentum in the off season, but at the same time, like Chris is Chris, so obviously that worked extremely well for him. Chris took him to new heights. And I was just happy to see him reach him because I knew like during our time together, there was so much frustration by how his body wasn't responding that I honestly, more than anything, was just excited to see his body take off in a direction that he might have never thought it was able to, so that was cool for me.
Yeah. I think we've all had those clients where you're like, man, if I get any reaction, hell, if I could get you fatter, I would call that a win. Like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I can't get you to gain weight, I get you to lose weight. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and it happens at that level too. That's another thing that people don't realize. I think a lot of the, I'm sure you get this, a lot of the bodybuilders, they just don't realize that it's a struggle all the way to the top.
For sure.
Like, they think, oh, that guy, he just trains and gets bigger. I mean, yeah, there's guys with the crazy genetics, but they still have those shows. They still have those preps. They still have those off seasons where stuff just isn't fucking working.
Yeah.
Or they just keep getting fucking hurt. And like we've all I've been training for 30 years. So I know how the body changes over time. And it doesn't matter how good your genetics are, you're still going to have like these massive roadblocks. And that's why we always say bodybuilding is just a huge advanced problem solving exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, a common topic right now is like the mental side of all this and mental health. And just because things look like they're going right on paper, it doesn't always mean behind the scenes that they are, Yep. And that's the thing. I think oftentimes my biggest connection that I have with guys is just like trying to help them navigate their own situations. Mm-hmm. Because pro bodybuilders know. If you really had to put a test in front of them, okay, what should you do next? I guarantee you 9.5 times out of 10 they would get the right answer. Yeah. But it's more so just having that companionship of giving a confident, answer to them. They need that. I know going back to, you guys posted the picture of Dallas this morning. That was one of the biggest things that I was to Dallas was just like somebody that he could confidently depend on. Yeah. Because a lot of the times it seemed like everything I did with Dallas worked. Like it didn't matter. Like it just worked. But yet behind the scenes, there was the mental struggles. There was the stress that he dealt with. There was the living up to expectations because of how quickly he was rising up the ranks. We dealt with all that on a daily. I remember 2016 for the Olympia prep. It was like we had conversations almost every day to the gym the past 4 weeks of like, I don't know how, I don't know how much longer I can handle this pressure. Or these expectations. And, just helping him navigate through that, that was a huge part. That was I think my most important job, more so than giving him a diet or more so than making sure his fat levels were right. It was like more keeping him sane, in the head.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And sometimes being a coach is a lot like being a drummer. They say a good drummer has to know when not to drum.
Yeah.
And that's always one of my favorite, kind of metaphors for sometimes you just have to get out of an athlete's way as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm watching, have you watched The Last Dance?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So I'm not sure how far you are. I'm all caught up right now. But there's that one line where they're talking about coaching Rodman in college. Mm-hmm. And the one coach is like working with him and he's a really good defensive coach. Like he's a great coach and he's working on like, boxing guys out and all this stuff. And the head coach calls him over and he goes, just leave him alone. You don't put a saddle on a Mustang.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, accurate. Don't worry about his technical shit. He's a different breed. You let him do his aggressive, just let him go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a little bit of what I know you were there the whole time, but I sort of feel like that's what you had to do with Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
it was just like, it was being a backbone for him more than anything. It wasn't like, And yeah, there was times where, like, I think with Dallas, we changed his diet a lot because it was like he was gaining this muscle so fast, but the maturity of it wasn't there. So there was times where, I mean, his full would look incredible, but his flat would look terrible. It was two extremes in that, because like he didn't have that mature muscle yet. So yeah, like I was like navigating the diet and stuff like that, but more than that, it was just like being a voice of reason for him. And, and then when it got to the gym, it was just like, it was letting him go,
do what you do.
Yeah.
Try to keep him safe.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's one thing that people forget about. And I know I've talked to Chris about a lot, is the most dangerous time as a coach is when things are going really, really well, because you can't take your eye off the ball. That's when you have to like really be watching, because you'll have months where you're just like, God damn, it doesn't matter what we do. It just works. But that's when you don't want to get comfortable either, because, it's going well, but it could go even better. You know what I mean? It's understanding, especially the guy of that caliber, like a bad year of gains for him would be the best gains in all three of our lives.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, oh shit, that's the best year of our life. And you'd miss the boat with him if that's all he did. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. I find the same thing. It's a lot of coaching is knowing how to coach the individual. I do have clients, I'm sure you do too, that you just tell them to stop being a pussy. And they have other clients that you like ninja your way around their feelings and make them warm and fuzzy to get the same end result.
Right. One of my, I love making comparisons to sports, but like Jimmy Johnson told a story, I think it was in his football life, but he talked about basically to convey the same message to Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith on the same team for the same play, he had to come about it in two separate ways. He said with Michael Irvin, he literally could just get stuck right into him, and Michael Irvin would receive that. If he got stuck right into Emmitt Smith would run from that. So like he's like, I literally had to find ways to communicate the same thing, but in a way that these guys would accept it. And that's coaching, and that's one of the best things I think that we can translate to bodybuilding is you have to learn how to communicate with these guys, what drives them, what initially brought them to bodybuilding. Was it lack of confidence? Was it something within their family? Was it their dad or a lack of father figure? Like knowing these things and then how to communicate through them, I really think it makes all the difference.
For sure.
That's like coaching. Yeah, that's real coaching. And Dusty and I were saying the other episode that, someone asked, how do I pick a coach? I've got these 3 coaches that I can work with, and, they're all good and they're all, blah, blah, blah. And my answer was, well, pick the one who cares the most, first of all.
Yeah.
Because they're going to, be there for you. You know what I mean? And so when you're putting the time in to get to know your athletes the way you do, that's just what that breeds.
Yeah.
That's why they trust you. you
Right.
know?
Right.
And
the thing is, that's a process. I think that's something that some new people coming to me don't understand is like, ultimately, I want to know you very well, but we need to organically let that happen. Like I don't know people very well right off the bat, nor is my communication with them the best right off the bat, but it grows over time, just like any relationship. The more time, the more attentive you are with putting, better be.
Yeah. What about obviously with you on, we got a lot of questions.
Sure.
And a lot of the questions I got were just direct, like they want to hear you speak about training.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you feel about being the type of coach that people go to for training knowledge? Everyone, there's all these different coaches, right?
Sure.
But a lot of people go to Matt Jansen because they're like, I want to learn how to train like that. I want him to do, you know what I mean? So how do you feel about that?
Well, I think honestly, that's my connection point with a lot of guys, because I love the training aspect. I feel that if I could kind of pick and, kind of look at things, and I think oftentimes the training is just kind of an afterthought, and I've never wanted it to be an afterthought within my own approach. Because to me, ultimately, like bodybuilding is really, it's done in the gym, and then we have these, snapshots and time on stage, but really the representation of that is done in the gym. So if you're communicating with somebody via email, and really you have no idea of how they're approaching sets, what their sets to failure look like, what their execution looks like, I mean, for me as a coach, as somebody that's representing themselves and also representing me, I'm doing a very poor job of leading them if I don't know what's going on in the gym. And to me too, it's like that common ground of, yes, I'm still young. Yes, I still love to push myself. Like, let's get together. Let's train. Let's push each other hard, you know? And that's, I mean, that's what I love about bodybuilding. It's just is getting in the gym, training with people, finding ways to push them outside of possibly their own comfort zone. It might not always be strength based, because I've trained with a lot of guys that are stronger than me, but there's still also those same guys that still love to train with me for, you know, reasons X, Y, and Z. So that really, to me, it's like, it's a big part of the equation that I've always wanted to be a part of my formula, I guess.
Right. Yeah. You take a lot of pride in the training. I can tell by how you train, you know. I watched your garage chest workout that you just posted.
So, I mean, honestly, like, I think this whole situation has just kind of reignited my fire for training, because for the first 3 weeks that we had restrictions here in Georgia, I didn't train at all.
You were thinking, oh, it'll just be a few weeks, right?
Yeah. And I didn't realize, like, I don't think I ever took training for granted, but in the same sense, I guess I kind of did, because once it was pulled from me, like, I truly realized how much I missed it. And then something else that I noticed too is, like, I wouldn't say by nature I'm an aggressive person. But I think part of that is because I'm able to let my aggression out in the gym. So 3 weeks at home, I was like, not that I was getting aggressive, but I'm like, something is missing in my life, you know, like, I'm able to, like, put a barbell in my hands and just attack it. And I noticed that. But yeah, I've loved being able to get back in my gym, I mean, in my garage, and just get back to just true basics. You know, I within my space that I have, I wanted to have a power rack in there, and then just kind of build everything else around it with the power rack being like the center of the gym kind of thing. Yep. It's been awesome. It's just been fun to get back in there and just get back to basics and appreciate the ability to be able to train, because I know so many people don't have it right now. Yeah,
it's I've had a lot of stress. You know, I own a gym, right? So, and we're closed, right?
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of stress, but I try not to bitch about the situation or anything, because every day I get to go turn that fucking key, and I get to go into that gym as an owner and train, and I can't imagine not being able to do that.
I know. Yeah.
You know, I live in a condo. What the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
I can't put a squat rack in my living room. I'm on the 24th floor.
Right.
That's only for the 23rd and under, for sure.
Yes. You know,
there's a weight limit on the 24th floor.
Yeah. It's just,
everyone knows that.
It's just, and it makes me really feel for all the people who are stuck out of the gym. Like, you know, I'm looking at Instagram, and I mean, I'm sure you're seeing all your friends, and I mean, you probably have some clients that don't have anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed, like, really in Europe, all of my clients that are in Europe, Spain, Italy, they've really been hit hard. I mean, the restrictions over there are much worse, and not only in terms of gym access, but food access. So those are the people that I've really seen. And not only that, but, like, their living situations are so much different. Just like you, like, these people can't have a gym, and they don't have garages, you know? Right. I mean, that's just not the situation over there. So I've noticed the biggest, like, the biggest hit in my coaching has come from my overseas people, just simply because they're not able to even train if they wanted to. There's literally no access to training or chicken, you know, things like that. So, I mean, it's really crazy what we're going through right now.
Yeah, I know we have to try. Like, I'm probably in the best province, one of the best provinces in Canada to be in. You know, we're looking at starting to open restaurants up in a week here and stuff like that. Well, what about where you live? What's going on?
Well, so where I live, we're open, but yet there's still, I think, a lot of, like, I don't know if it's fear, I don't know what it is, but there's still a lot of businesses that are choosing to be closed. So we are open. And obviously there's restrictions, I think, right now of no more of 50 in a building, things like that. But there's most of the independent gyms have reopened back up. And then, like, the bigger chains like LA Fitness and stuff like are still closed.
What city are you in again?
I live in Flowery Branch, which is like 45 minutes outside of Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw Georgia opened up 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and then you actually had a lower count, didn't you?
We did. Yeah, we
immediately.
Well, they're saying that 66% of the New York City new cases are people who've been staying at home.
Yeah, because their immune system's shot.
And then they're going to Costco, or they're going to the grocery store once a week. They haven't been out of the house all week.
Yeah.
And and they pick. I don't know. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm. I don't know where you are on this. I'd love to hear your opinion, but I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I believe in incompetence, and I believe in bad communication, and I believe in people fucking up on a large scale. That
sounds like relationship advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now we move into the now we're talking about
all the reasons I've been told goodbye over my life.
But, I don't want to talk about the shit too much, but I do think we're gonna look back on all this and go, holy fuck, if that ever happens again, we gotta fucking.
Yeah, so my initial thought process, I'll try to make this quick, but when everything initially happened, I was like, okay, I'm just going to abide by the government regulations, do the best I can, be a good citizen. But then, the more I think about it, and I'm not comparing it to the flu. I know it's not the same thing. But, again, if we just want to look at statistics, we've never gone to this extreme for anything else. And it's like now it's like, I mean, we're canceling things for the rest of the year based off of the unknown. It's just I don't understand it. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah, I know. And I was listening to one of the Swedish guys being interviewed, and it wasn't on like a weird channel. It was on like a mainstream. It was on the Daily Show. Mm-hmm. So there's, Trevor Noah had him on the Daily Show, and he's talking about Sweden. And he was saying that the thought of canceling school for children was never an option. Yeah. They were like, why would we cancel school? The statistics on children not going to school is tremendously bad for their future.
Right.
He's like, that never even crossed our minds. They think that everyone who canceled school for kids because let's face it, the kids aren't dying.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not. Zero, like a lot of countries have 0 people under the age of 20 dead.
Yeah.
So they're like, the canceling school. Now they think it's just the craziest thing. And I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting to hear him put it that way. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't thinking too much about school.
Well, yeah. You're a little past that.
I heard a story here yesterday from my sister. She's friends with a teacher. They're already talking about doing, and this makes no sense because it's about, apparently it's a contact issue, but they're talking about doing basically odd and even days. So kids are going to go Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday will be off. So they're going to furlough the teachers on Fridays to cut back on the budget. But yet all those kids, whether you're going Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, they're all coming in contact with the same teacher.
Yes.
So what are we accomplishing? We're accomplishing nothing if you want to look at what they're saying that we should avoid. You know, and then another thing too that's like really starting to confuse me is like the CDC and then like the head advisors of this whole campaign that get on the news every day, like Dr. Fauci, they're not even on the same page. Like the CDC is saying, wear a mask when you go out in public. And then Dr. Fauci gets on television and says these masks are not
terrible.
Helping. Yep. Like what is it? You know? It's like it's just, rolling to their own tune. So much fear is being brought up now that nobody's, it's like everybody's handicapping themselves, or not everybody, but the general thought process. And now we're like in a situation where we're looking, months in advance, and things are just, we're not going to do that, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. They did so Denver did a Colorado, but Denver's where I've been going a ton. They have they opened up things a little bit. So day one, they open up. The next day, the news is like, holy shit, we're up 2%. I'm like, well, 2% more people didn't get it yesterday and die. But people started freaking out, because yesterday it started and today we're higher. Holy shit. And I'm like, I wanted to raise my hand and be like, that didn't happen yesterday.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you guys? I think common sense, like you said, Ron, that's the thing that went out the window. Because if you just start thinking, what's the best way to kill your immune system? Put nothing around you that can get you sick. Why do you think they tell you Matt, when you have kids, you know how you tell kids not to put shit in their mouth? It's so they don't choke. It's not about germs. You don't give a shit about the germs. You need, it's I've talked to nurses and doctors that say, let kids, if they want to put sand in their mouth, that's fine.
Yeah.
How they build their immune system. So by locking yourself in a 409 room, you're fucking yourself once you walk out.
For sure.
there's so many examples of what you said about Fauci and the CDC. And that's I think the main root of the problem is just the population isn't educated properly. No one's on the same page. So then they lose confidence in the government. And then it politicizes issues because there's two different opinions.
Right.
It's just a cascading event. It's a fire hose of bullshit. And it goes all the way down to the smallest level. Like I saw a sign from a beach in Australia, and it said prohibited activities, and it was swimming, right? Swimming was prohibited, and a bunch of other things. And then activities you can do, surfing.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And I was like,
don't fall off the board then, because you're not allowed to swim.
And surfing. So you have to, if you're a really good surfer, you can surf.
If you fall off, you're supposed to just drown.
Then the scariest part is this is in Australia. So that means in Australia, 99% of the population live within 10 miles of the beach.
Yep.
So that means every single person on the committee that made that sign is fully aware of beach culture. They grew up around it. They know what happens at the beach. They've been to the beach, and they couldn't figure that out.
Right.
Yeah, it's just.
But good luck to you guys down in Georgia. You know, I hope. Are you back in the gym yet?
Well, I'm honestly just going to continue to train out of my garage. I'm loving it. So, I had a membership at LA Fitness, and they're not open yet. But I'm just going to continue to just train out of my garage.
Oh, so you weren't training at like a kick-ass hardcore gym or anything?
No. I chose LA Fitness because it's the most well-equipped gym. They have like a lot of old flex pieces there, Nautilus plate-loaded pieces. So that's where I've been. But ever since this happened, I just kind of invested in my garage and trying to make it as good as possible and going from there. So,
what do you have in there so far?
So I have a Cybex power rack. I have a Body Masters T-bar row, incline T-bar row. I have the Cybex squat press.
Yep.
Cybex plate-loaded leg extension.
Nice.
Cybex hack squat.
Beautiful.
A Body Masters adductor.
Oh, okay.
Cybex lat pull down. And then a Icarian seated hamstring curl. And then I got a dip Roman chair station and then a preacher curl bench, and that's it. And then I got like landmine attachments. For now I have the Bowflex dumbbells, which honestly before this I probably would have made fun of, but they're honestly not bad. So they go from 5 pounds to 52.5 pounds with the rotating dial. Mm-hmm. So I've been using that, and then I have a Kabuki transformer bar, which is like a safety squat bar that loads in different positions. I have one of those, 2 Texas power bars. And that's it, really, and just having as much fun as I can.
You have like porn to run, just so you know, watch his face.
And I love that you're an equipment guy and you give the brand names. That's what I love.
Part
but
of it.
You knew he wanted to talk dirty, so he's like, just get it out there, get it out there.
And the thing, one of the great things about Cybex stuff is the footprint is small on every piece.
For sure, yeah.
And if I was going to do a garage gym, I would probably Cybex the shit out of it because they build everything really tight. And it's funny because I never appreciated it until I owned a gym. Yeah. And I see, we got some pieces that are really big. And I'm like, oh, man, this could be – if I got a Cybex replacement for this, I would 10 square feet.
I mean, I just found the squat press the other day. I found it on Facebook.
What a great piece.
The footprint is so small. I mean, there's no wasted space. I mean, you basically have the seat, the platform, and then everything in between is like it's caved in. So there's nothing wasted.
You have the 18 plate horns on it?
Yeah, I have those, which I'm missing. I need some more plates, but we'll find those eventually.
Yeah, you got to get the 18 plate horns. That's the only way to roll.
I think so many people that I know of and clients and stuff have created good enough garage gyms that they're never going back.
No.
They're like, dude, my garage gym is so badass. Why would I go back?
Well, I could totally see it. I love the culture of the gym, and I've been fortunate enough to always kind of have like a bit of a more hardcore gym in my life. Mm-hmm. But if I lived in like a big metro center and, like you said, you're training at LA Fitness, they'd have to have pretty damn good equipment to like make me loyal.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, so I've never been one that needs to train around a bunch of people, but like, so when you walk into LA Fitness, it's really hard to basically create your own environment around a bunch of mopey people. You know, but I can walk out of my garage, open the door, turn whatever music on I want, and it's like that environment to me is so much better than training around a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing or really don't want to be there. Now, obviously, if I was in your city, I would love, you know, like that's an environment. I mean, I remember last year at the Vancouver Pro training there, like it was incredible.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But most gyms aren't like that, you know? So for me right now, like I'd honestly, like, I feel like my progress is going to be more conducive and better just on my own than going back to LA Fitness.
Yeah, it's definitely funny when you've got that control. I started training in a gym here during this process. I just got a key for the back, and next thing you know, I'm like, can I buy some equipment and put it in here? He's like, sure. So start ordering stuff and just kind of bringing it into the gym. So it's mine now. People will come in and be members, but that's my shit.
So he got himself a shareholder is what you're saying.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm going to need this and this in here. And next thing you know, he's like, well, I'll buy some things too. What else do you want? I'm like, all right. Let's build this shit out. So it's called Dusty's in my mind, but not in real.
Right. What about the business side of things, Matt? I got some questions for you. You know, people sort of on the business line of things. People see you as a businessman. You know, you've got a supplement gig going now. You're doing really well with other things. Why don't you just kind of give us your perspective on your business goals?
Well, honestly, when I had my son, I think, you know, I've always considered myself a motivated individual, but having my son just really brought that to another level for me. And I wanted to make sure that I did a few things. I wanted to set, you know, not only our future up, but also his future. And then also a big thing for me is my dad was very, very in touch with my life all throughout my life. He worked. I mean, I remember there's a lot of times that my dad was leaving the house at 4:00 in the morning, not getting home till 7:00 at night, but he never missed any of my events. And he was actually like physically present. It wasn't like he was there, but on the phone, like he was there. So that's something that I really want to make sure that I do with my boys. So I have some goals by the time they're 5, 6, 7 years old that I can be set up financially to not have to be working with as many clients by that point, so I can be more a part of their lives. If I want to coach them, I can coach them. And, you know, if I want to pick them up from school every day and just be intentional with my conversation with them rather than being on the phone, like I want to do that. That's important to me. So when it came to setting myself up business-wise, I never wanted coaching to be something where it was just like trying to drive the meter of how much money that I was making, because then I feel like I would lose touch with my passion of coaching. So initially with Revive, that was a relationship that was developed for a few years before we proceeded with anything. Dom and I just, you know, grew as friends. He always said that he wanted to find a way to try to help me and my passions, and obviously health within the supplementation that I use is an important part of my protocols. So that's how that started. And then honestly, this whole, again, like I'm honestly time of restriction because it's challenged me to really dig into every facet of what I've done as a coach, be critical of myself, look at ways of what I could do better. And I actually, 2 weeks ago, I hired a business manager to help me with basically doing everything, starting over with everything that I've done from scratch. So basically forgetting everything I've ever done, not from like an X's and O's standpoint, but how I send emails, how I file all my documentation, just making sure that I'm utilizing my time as best as possible, removing wasted time from my day. And another thing that I've done too, which if you guys are working with athletes, I would highly, highly recommend this to you, is I've actually switched all my updates over to WhatsApp, which in and of itself, like you don't think it's going to save you that much time, but it saved me so much time because for one instance, I downloaded the WhatsApp app for my computer. So when I'm working on updates, I just pull it up big. So my email is out of the scope. So now I'm no longer working on client updates and an email from this person and an email from that person. It's just literally just clients. And then once I get my clients done, I move on to the next task. And not only that, but like with WhatsApp, obviously everything's just in one congruent, you know, it just flows, you know, the communication just flows. So if you need to look back through information, it's not having to search their name and then go through emails and then you get a text from somebody and then, you know, 45 minutes later, you're still working on the same athlete. So that has been, I've integrated that process the last week and a half. And it's been, I mean, incredible in terms of the time that I'm able to be intentional with my athletes and then move on to my next task. So that alone has been huge for me too. So I guess really like I started off this discussion, being intentional with how we talk to people within my business. I'm just continuing to try to find ways to be more intentional with my time, because ultimately my driving force in all this is my family, and not wanting to be so consumed with work that I'm missing out on important time with them. So that's kind of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's a great tip, because I feel like that's something everyone is kind of terrible at. But, you know, I've got some clients that update me through text, some that update me through email. And, you know, sometimes I do think, man, I want to consolidate all this stuff. And I never thought of using WhatsApp.
That's good things about it. What?
Yeah, I just never thought of using WhatsApp.
Yeah. Because another thing I was having people do is, because I like to work on the training aspect, I would have them send all their information to my email, but yet they would send me through WhatsApp their training, because you can send longer videos through training. But then, so I'm going to half of their update here, the other half of their update here. You know, now it's just it's all right there. You know, I can look at everything and we can communicate. And the other thing is because it's on people's phones, it's like a text conversation, whereas most of my athletes aren't on their email all day. So they might not email me back for 5 hours, and then I email them back 2 hours later. And next thing you know, we've been emailing back and forth for 11 hours versus an update. It's like a text. I text them, and then 3 minutes later they respond, and then we're done. You know, it's on to the next one kind of thing. So it's really been great.
Yeah. What about your own training? You know, like you're training like you're fucking training to win a big time show all the time. You know, I see you training so heavy and hard and progressing constantly, and your physique gets better every time you've competed. Where do you think, you know, what's your driver right now when you're in the gym?
So my driver, my goal is to win my pro card. Yes. Last year I it's kind of annoying. I hate even talking about it. I had an injury to my leg in 2016 that honestly still through today isn't better. I go through highs and lows with it. I've exhausted every doctor that is knowledgeable in the area. Most of them say that it's not, but anyway, there's something wrong with my leg. So the only thing that I hadn't done was last year, that we're talking January of 2019 now. I got an MRI on my hip. It showed 4 grade 1 injuries, glute med, glute max, lateral quad, adductor. So there was grade 1 injuries there. And then I had a hemorrhage coming out of my hip. So some blood and bruising in the hip. So the only thing I hadn't tried was to take off from training legs. So I took off from training legs from January through July of last year. During that time as well, my wife was pregnant. So I kind of just took the opportunity to kind of pull back on bodybuilding. I still trained hard the whole time, but I pulled back on my meals. I also within my own bodybuilding, I've really never taken a break. So I wanted to see okay, what happens if I take a break like a lot of these normal guys do that I've never thought I was good enough to be able to do. So I pulled back on my food. So I went from post USAs in 2018, I rebounded up to a really, really tight 253. And then halfway through last year, I was at kind of a softer 233. So in my mind, I'm still rebuilding that back up. I initially wanted to do nationals this year, but my thought process is with all this uncertainty and with my main passion being the gym, I know that I can still get better. So why rush the process, or why jump into a diet that I'm going to have to get out of? So I'm going to focus on something for next year. And again, within my family structure, I know that I'm not one of those guys that could hit every national show in a season, because I just don't have that much time to allocate. So when I do allocate the time, I really need to make sure that I'm ready. And that my body has progressed and that I've changed. So I'm not into rushing that process for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. I want to finish. I want to accomplish this task for all the people that have supported me. When I look at, since 18, I've lived the bodybuilder life. I've missed out on birthdays. I've done all the things. So if for anything else, I just want to, for those people that have supported me, my family, my wife, I just want to finish and accomplish the task. And then I'll be okay, and not that if I don't, I still will be okay. But that's kind of my end goal right now, and then go from there.
Right.
Go ahead, Dusty. I know you put up a post for questions.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's funny because we get
some good ones here.
We get like 20 great questions and we hit 3 of them.
Yeah, and we have much more than 20 this time.
We go so deep.
Yeah, we can't help it, Matt. There's nothing we can do. No, so actually I got some really solid ones, so this will be good here. Let me pull these up real quick.
How's the hip now, by the way?
Well, it was really good, and then I took those 3 weeks off to start this quarantine, and then I hurt myself the first week back. So it's just a little annoying. I mean, and honestly, and I'm like right now, not to just like name drop, but I'm going to the doctor that travels every week to work with the Chiefs. Right. So like this guy really knows what he's doing, but like it's just like on paper and even on MRIs, like it doesn't look that bad. I honestly think I'm sure you guys are familiar with John Quint. Do you know him?
No.
Yep. Okay, so John Quint is out of Columbus, Ohio. He's extremely brilliant. He's worked on me before, and he says the issue is actually within my joint capsule, which isn't going to show up because there's not an injury in the joint capsule. He's just saying my mobility in the joint capsule is off. Mm-hmm. So basically, I don't have any internal rotation in my joint. So because of that, when I'm going through planes of motion, rather than it rotating as it should, it's getting stuck, and then that's what's causing the muscular strains around it.
Yeah, because your body's moving in directions it shouldn't to deal with that.
Right. Do you shorten up your range a little, or is it not that simple?
It's not that simple.
Yeah, it never is. Can I just train around this huge problem?
Excuse me?
Can I just train around this huge problem?
I know, for real. So, but anyway.
So one of the questions and we've touched on this a few times, but I'm glad somebody asked. I think it's fantastic. Maintaining insulin sensitivity if you're insulin resistant from pounding carbs for a long time. How do you fix that? And kind of go into a little bit too on the importance of it, because I'm always amazed at how many people have no idea what their blood glucose levels are and things like that. I'm like, you don't check?
That's it. I honestly think as bodybuilding, if people can really figure this out for themselves, because it's very individual. Like some people can really push the threshold, others can't. If you guys can figure out basically the point in which of your off season where your body goes from gaining muscle to shifting more so to fat gain and really timing that right, you can really change the forecast of your progress long term. Because I think we all have a point within our off seasons where we're pushing food where the shift happens, and it's being aware of that shift and then kind of resetting things. And that's something, again, like we talk about my business. I looked back at the beginning of this. I looked back through a lot of notes of clients that I felt like I really nailed it with, and clients that I felt like I missed the mark with, and through their off seasons more so than a contest prep. And it was those guys that I went through phases of cleaning up things for a few weeks and then progressing forward, and then cleaning up for a few weeks and then progressing forward. It seemed like those are the guys that made the best muscular progress, and I know because I've done it myself. Like we get in this mindset where it's like, oh, we got to push the food. We got to push the food. We got to push the food. But like, really, like what's happening within that? Is it, are we getting better? Are we not? Are we just gaining body fat? That's why, checkpoints of pictures are so important. I think pictures are way more important than the scale at any point in the, of your season, because it's going to really tell the story of how you're partitioning nutrients, what's going on there. And then obviously we could get into growth hormone, but bodybuilders especially, you guys need to be very cautious of where you're waking up at in the morning in terms of your blood glucose. And one of the things that I have my athletes do, which is going to kind of help less skewed results, is get up first thing in the morning. I tell them to drink 20 to 32 ounces of water, wait 20 minutes, then take your blood glucose in the morning. And the reason why I say that is because if you're dehydrated, that can also skew your blood glucose. Yeah. But it's very important to know I think it's such a good marker. Now, I'm not one of those guys that bases a peak off of blood glucose because I think we should trust our eyes for that. But in terms of off season, I think it's a marker that we shouldn't be avoiding. And then, like I said, like if I really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, the best progress I've had and the best progress that my guys have always had always comes out of a leaner state. The longer, once we push those fat, that fat levels up more, it's like everything just kind of stalls out at that point. So rather than stalling out and holding it for a long time, just slowly decline, reset yourself, and then make your next push. Reset, and then make your next push. And it just works so much better.
Well, you're running that around with your training as well. I mean, I don't know why people can't understand 150% 52 weeks a year, why does the food have to be pressed like you are? Because I think one thing you nailed too is, I tell people the reason it's so important is if we're doing an hour and a half of cardio in the off season and and your blood glucose levels are 104 and it's time to start prep, we're in deep shit. What are we gonna do? 4 hours of cardio, and then what are we gonna do with the food? Not eat at all?
Yeah.
I mean,
Fourth day.
So what sort of guidelines do you recommend? First of all, you'd want people to buy a blood glucose meter,
right?
And will any cheap one do?
No, honestly, no. Cheap ones. I've actually ran through several myself. When I purchased them, I don't remember the brand that I have downstairs, but I look for ones with 5-star reviews on Amazon, and then actually read through those reviews. Because you should be reading reviews of people that actually have diabetes, which these numbers are crucial for them. All right. So you need to make sure that these numbers are accurate. And then outside of a blood glucose meter, because I don't want this to be all about just a number, know those areas within your own body composition where you start to hold fat more. For me, it's on my lower abs, so once the skin fold on my lower abs starts to get thicker and thicker, I know it's time to start to pull back. And within these, one thing that I think is also very important is that you shouldn't be cutting to the point of losing performance, which I think might be the reason why so many people are hesitant to do this in the first place. Like, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying get peeled out of your mind. I'm just saying resensitize your body so that way your body can better utilize nutrients. Just reset, get to the point. Again, hunger could be a good marker here. The thicker levels of skin folds that you yourself know. For me, it's like my glutes come in first, my abs come in last. So when I'm paying attention, my abs more than my glutes.
I find that funny.
Like that.
My abs are in at 3:30, and my glutes take about 15 weeks to come in. One thing I've always, sort of an old school general rule that I was always taught was, not necessarily contest diet, but clean it right up for, a good, 3-4 weeks before you start your cycle. That was always like an old school rule of thumb, right? Was clean it up, drop some water, feel like you're hungry, your abs look better, legs start, sharpening up, and then start your cycle and your body will grow more. That was just always kind of something that was like a routine for, the old school guys that weren't, necessarily even talking about blood sugar.
Right.
They were just like, it just made sense to everyone in the day. Was like, because everyone says when some of the best gains most guys get first half of their contest prep. For sure. Because they've never been so regimented. So if you can you just do that for 4 weeks and then start your cycle and your body will. Yeah. That was kind of I've even told some guys that the past few weeks. It's like I made a post about it even on Instagram. I feel like I'm stupid we get stuck in our ways. We get sidetracked. But what you just said is so true. Every time I make my best progress, it's the initial 8 weeks of my prep, and then it's coming out of the back end of my prep. And what two things are happening in that environment? My body is sensitive to nutrients. Yep. It's foolproof. Now, there's outliers. There's people that really need to push the food for a long time, of course, but even within this pushing the food, I think for a greater majority of us that do need to push the food, we still need to reset. Even if you're not getting fat, just letting hunger reset. And then once hunger resets, then begin your next push up, just paying attention to biofeedback. We don't need, I honestly think a blood sugar meter puts a quantifiable number on this, but I think it really, if we're just honest with ourselves, a lot of this biofeedback we know without seeing a number on a blood sugar meter. Right. Unless you're just completely negligent, Detached. Yeah, I remember, all the years that I was trying to get huge, all through the 90s and 2000s. I couldn't imagine not stuffing myself with food to get bigger. You know what I mean? And now as I'm older and I've, gone through more preps and all that stuff, I'm not afraid to be hungry now. You know what I mean? I think if I was a young bodybuilder now doing what I know now, I think I'd be able to put more muscle on because I was so afraid to be hungry. In the old days, it was like, if you're hungry, it means you're shrinking. You know,
right. If you're hungry, you're shrinking. I fucking love it.
Yeah, if you're hungry, you're shrinking. Like that was literally the attitude, right?
Digestion's working better. If your digestion's working better, you're honestly probably growing. I mean,
yeah.
Well, that's the thing though, is I think there's that point, and Matt, you already nailed it. It's like when you're hungry, that's your body saying, "Feed me so I can use it."
Right.
Like, I mean, I think being simple-minded helps sometimes, because we have so much information, especially when you've been doing this as long as we have, that if you always oversimplify, you get to your answer. You know what I mean? It's like if you're forcing food and then your workouts feel sluggish and your breathing is an issue, or your low back is tight because you're so fucking heavy, it's like, well, obviously that's not good. Because I can tell, it's funny because people will comment, and I've seen your videos, Matt, too, when you're in prep. You know, I'm pulling 7.5 plates off the ground 5 weeks out. And people are like, how are you still strong? I'm like, you're not strong when you're fucking peeled and eating perfectly and your whole life revolves around bodybuilding?
And full of good gear.
Yeah, that's like, you know what's funny is that's actually true, because the rest of the year, contrary to everyone else, you're not geared out of your fucking mind. So an average dose is like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm blasted out of my mind. I'm doing 800 milligrams. What?
Yeah. What do you think are some of the, like, what are some of the things that bother you the most about the bodybuilding process right now when it comes to people and misinformation and bullshit and marketing and all that stuff?
Oh man.
There might be part 2, eh? Do we have to do part 2?
Yeah, no.
We're going to be here for a minute. Nice job. Let me get a snack.
I think, one thing that's like on my mind in current times is I've just realized, and I'm not faulting bodybuilders for this, but I've realized that for so many, the focus is on a calendar more than progress. Mm-hmm. You know, and I wish I think that's been one of my biggest driving factors the past 4 weeks is, yes, there's so much uncertainty. Yes, there's so much that's out of our hands. But like, for those of you guys that are in the gym, like, what's changed other than the fact that you don't have a specific date to shoot for? Like, have you maxed out your physique? Can you not get any better? Are you top 5 at the Olympia? Well, if you've answered no to all those questions, then why are you concerned right now? You know, like, let's keep getting better. Let's keep going through these cycles that we just talked about of pushing the food up, resensitizing yourself, pushing the food back up. You know, that to me is, I've just become very aware to the fact that, like, bodybuilders are so dictated by a calendar that it's like without it, and I understand it's been pulled from all of us. It's a frustration from all of us, but yet we still have so many things within our control that we can be getting better through, you know? So that's one thing, you know, and I guess ultimately I just wish that people based their bodybuilding more around like what athletics should really look like. Because athletics to me is about progress. It's about building upon one season to the next, and that can still happen. You know, that it doesn't have to be situational. Like, you don't have to step on a stage to then go to the next step of this process. And it seems like so many people's minds are just like stuck on that.
You know what the problem is, Matt, is that people are, and I told Ron about this. I've got some other business ventures I'm working on, and people are using these as excuses to not do anything. You know, I mean, I've got guys that are complaining, doing some construction work for me that, oh shit, things are so tough. And I'm like, I'm trying to give you money to go work. Take the fucking money and do the fucking job. You know what I mean? But they're like, oh, it's so tough right now. And I'm like, but I'm holding thousands of dollars and I'm trying to give it to you. And that's how I feel about the bodybuilding world, is everyone's like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to compete, so I'm going to fuck off. I've got clients that are on the opposite end of the spectrum, man. They're like, I got nothing. So how perfect can my diet be? What else can we do? And I'm talking about soccer moms.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this woman is a fucking beast. Like,
I had one guy message me. He's like, well, fuck, my show's canceled. And I was like, okay, here's your new diet. You know, your previous highest body weight is, 215. We're going to see 225 before you start your prep for whatever show you do. And he's like, oh, I thought. And I was like, well, don't you want to compete? And he's like, well, yeah, probably not to the spring. And I'm like, well, let's fucking get to work. And he's like, and then he's like, oh, like, it literally just didn't occur to him. Like, oh, and my show got canceled, so I guess I got to message Ron. And I'm like, well, that doesn't change a thing. And I told him, I said, I trained for 7 years before my first show. You know, and he's like, oh, and all of a sudden the wheels are turning. Because like a lot of guys get into this, right? You know, they think that the competing is the reason that we do it.
But you do it because you've got like a target. I remember I had the opposite mindset. Like I did my first big show in 2006, and I got fourth in a. Actually, it's funny, but 4 of the 5 guys in the top 5 of that show are pros now. But
and that was a regional show.
That was an Emerald Cup. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I did that show, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to compete again until I can win an overall. So that was 06. In 2008, I won an overall. Yeah. And I went and looked at a national level, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing that until I can be in the top 5. So
a couple more years.
2009, nothing. I was like, nope, I'm not there yet. 2010, I think I can do it, and won junior nationals. And I was like, okay, now it's time. Because I never understood the idea in my head was the opposite. It was every time I'm dieting all the way down to contest shape, I'm not getting bigger and better.
Exactly.
You know, if you're hungry, you're shrinking.
There you go. See, Rod gets to use his fucking line.
That's another T-shirt, Dusty. We just keep pumping them out.
We have so many, but no, that was a big factor to me because I just didn't understand. And what was funny, and fortunately, I've got some good people around here, but I was like the worst of the guys trying to do something in bodybuilding in my area. And then fast forward 3 years, and everybody's asking me what I'm doing, and I'm like, well, I just didn't compete 7 fucking times.
Right.
Yeah. You know, but I trained and ate and slept like I was getting ready for a show. Whereas the other problem with a lot of people is as soon as they're not in prep, they're not bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear guys kind of brag to me. Like, it's like a weird brag. It's like a lazy brag. Like, yeah, I had like 3 meals a day in the off season.
Yeah. Well, that's why like the same as last year.
Like, oh, I respect you less as a bodybuilder. Sorry. But, you know, you mentioned the calendar, Matt. What do you think about the Olympia announcement?
I have mixed feelings about it. I guess I'm a traditionalist in the sense, like, I think so much about championships and when they happen is around the time frame of which they happen. You know, for example, the Super Bowl in July is extremely odd. You know, like just that whole thing is it just feels weird. You know, like even like USA's, like I've always wanted to win the USA title, but a part of that, I think for me is like July, the heat, you know, like,
that miserable fucking weekend in Vegas.
Yeah.
That terrible backstage room that you can't fit in. Actually, it's funny that I say that and I'm smiling because I think the same, Matt.
Yeah,
Could you imagine winning the USA's that wasn't at UNLV?
It's not 120 Fahrenheit outside.
And now it's I think another thing, and if I'm just going to be completely transparent, I wish there was maybe like an athletes organization for you guys in the IFBB or something, because I feel like part of what's being missed right now is the fact that timing of these things is so crucially important for our health as athletes. Mm-hmm. You know, like, so we've already had athletes that have been prepping and then pulled out of prep and then gone back into prep, and like you can't run drugs all year long, you know, and I feel like, and I'm not saying that they are, but like with just moving the Olympia back to December, it's like they're kind of just like acting like that's not part of the puzzle.
Right.
I'm not trying to like, I just feel like there needs to be things in place to protect the athletes.
Yeah. They're sort of like, it's unspoken, but it's like, oh, 12 more weeks of trend.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Like,
but I think the truth of the matter is, and we all know this, if you know, because we are all business people, we know what's really happening. What they're saying is we're trying to get an Olympian in 2020, and that's our best odds if we make it as late as fucking possible that it won't be canceled by the number of people allowed in a room or all these types of things, so we can still make money. So I get it.
Yeah.
But I do wish, like you said, Matt, there was some transparency on it, because I would much rather the promoters just came out and said, guys, we're pushing these shows late because we fucking hope they happen.
Yeah.
Because in reality, that's what's happening. I guarantee you, they looked at the calendar and said, well, ain't nobody competing after Christmas.
What's the last
this is the
weekend
latest we can go that people might actually do it. So we're going to go for it. And it might, and the scary part is, I don't even know if it's going to happen still. With where we're at now, dude, I don't see this shit happening.
I feel like there is, so I was watching one of the bullshit news shows and they were chatting, and They're saying that there is a big push to make sure that this is over with by Christmas so people can travel freely and be comfortable traveling and pack the airports and they really, really want to be back to normal. So I think like booking an event around Christmas is sort of piggybacking on that hope.
Right.
You know, because that's a huge goal for obviously everyone wants that to happen.
But the keyword is hope. I mean, so it's tough for me as a coach. I pretty much told every athlete I have, I'm like, guys, we're doing next year. I just don't see the fucking point of going into. I mean, look, we've never had a time in our lives or our parents' lives or anyone's lives that we know of where we didn't know that the gym was going to be, all of the gyms were going to be closed. I can't tell a guy, okay, get ready for the show like you always do and fucking work your face off, and we'll see if it happens.
I still have hope there are going to be some shows in some places because, like I said, where I live, things are like the numbers are really low, and there are still some shows booked for like later in the year, and I actually think they probably will happen. But as I don't necessarily think like.
Well, I hope so.
In downtown New York or anything. I don't know what's going on. I think it's very region to region. But yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Dusty just touched on I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody does. I don't even know if all the guys that are women, anybody that's currently qualified for the Olympia, if they even all have access to train right now. I would assume most do, but I don't know for 100% that they all do. So now you got people that are going to be apparently qualified for the Olympia that haven't trained now in 10 weeks potentially. That doesn't make any sense. That's not putting the athlete in the best position to represent the IFBB on the biggest stage.
I've seen some really high level people training in garages.
Well, you can find a way to train, but what about? I mean, here, let's take it further, Matt. And this is a conversation Chris and I had before the New York Pro was canceled. I was like, Chris, these guys don't have gyms, and Chris goes, Dusty, these guys don't have fucking money. They're personal trainers, and I'm like, oh.
Well, exactly.
So then you realize, because I am fortunate enough that my business is actually up right now, but you look across the board and that's not the case. These guys are trying to figure out how to eat normal, let alone eat bodybuilding, let alone eat drugs, let alone focus on that. Yeah. They're trying to pay their fucking bills.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's gotten forgotten because you take it as far down as you can because the gym's being closed is real to me, but paying my bills isn't real because that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's one of those things where when Chris smacked me with that, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
most of my friends are personal trainers who don't have sponsors.
Yeah, and a lot of sponsors drop people too. There's a lot of contracts got ended, with a lack of travel, lack of expos. I know a lot of bodybuilders that their contract is got ended,
Yeah.
So it's pretty devastating. What do you have to say that we've had you for over an hour? Holy shit.
We just steal people.
Yeah, we steal people. Make them feel obligated to hang around.
Another point I was going to bring up, you said about things that make me frustrated or whatever. One thing that bothers me, I guess, is and I know this is a conversation that many people have had, but who gets validity and who doesn't on Instagram is always something that, for example, perfect example to me is John Jewett. John Jewett puts out incredible content, extremely educational. And then sometimes I'm scrolling past his posts and I'm like, how does this only have 3,000 views? Or because it's so intensive and the quality that he's giving consistently. But then you have this other person that literally just shows a glute kickback. And it's I wish there was a way that, and this is just me talking in hypotheticals, but where there was more of a systematic, levels to this, where, it wasn't just based off of fame, but based off of proper education or really what you're providing or the value that you're giving. Because John's just one example of many, but there's so many times where I see his stuff and I'm like, man, this is so good. I don't understand how more people aren't seeing it or how it's hidden in the algorithm or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, I'm just throwing out that tidbit, but that was
just a quality check mark.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we can check mark your name, but I want to know if you're actually good at anything.
You get a blue check, and then maybe get a green check if you're this guy knows his shit. You know what I mean?
Is this person?
I think people
certified real gains
to me because I joke with people because they'll say oh, will you write my training? And I'll say, sure. Who do you work with? And they tell me, I'm like, no. what? I'm like, his program's not going to work with what I would have you do. So I work with a lot of Tuttle's people and stuff like that because I'm like, oh, so you work with me. It's just a different name and he's a little smarter. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
You're good to go.
I always like it when I get someone who messages me and they got pictures and they really like feel like they want to go and they're like, and I go, well, what do you do for training? And I love it when they say certain names,
Right.
you know, because I know it makes my job way easier.
Right.
Like to say, oh, well, you know, I mean, I've followed like 5 or 6 of Mountain Dog's programs, and I've seen all his videos, and you know, I follow a lot of the progressive resistance guys, and I really like Matt Jansen, and you know, like they say that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to teach you how to move your feet around on a leg press.
Right.
I can just say quad dominant, and you know that means, you know what I mean? Like it just the pieces fall together, and it's there is that list of names where it's like a relief when you know that's who they follow. You know, there's a list of names you don't want to hear, you know. So I'd love to hear your list of names of who you don't want to hear.
Well, don't worry, we'll turn this off and then do that.
That could be part 2. I don't know. Anything else you want to say, man? You given us a lot of time. We appreciate it.
I mean, if you guys want to do one, I'm good. I mean, if you want to do one more question, I'm happy with that. If you want to just end it here, whatever. I'm down for whatever.
We
Another one.
got some, dude.
We get to the hour mark and the guilt sets in.
For Ron, I don't give a fuck.
Oh, they gotta let this person.
I just assume people will hang up on me eventually.
Yes.
All right, one sec, because I want to make sure I've got good ones here. Okay, you're doing 2 more questions. Sorry.
All right.
So one guy wants to know what would you say are the things that you changed, Matt, for yourself over the last? I mean, I'm gonna kind of put some numbers in here. Before your last USA's, you made your biggest jump in your physique.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fucking night and day.
Great at that show.
Yeah. What were the things that you did prior to that show in that off season and leading into it that you think you're like, okay, those were the things I was missing?
So, again, I can't leave it out of the equation, but I lost my brother. I lost Dallas. I had my son in 3 weeks. So that forever has changed my life. That's changed my focus. That's changed everything. And I'm going to say, like, I don't think that I was the best with coping with things after all that. I mean, the emotional swing of everything. But what I did do is I just was like laser focused in on my goals. So that for sure has to be accounted for. The other thing that I did more than ever from basically the summer of 2017 until I competed is I specifically rested more than ever that entire year as a part of my training program. Mm-hmm. I went back and I think I don't remember exactly what I did, but at some point during that summer, 2017, I watched Dorian's Blood and Guts again. And I'm just like, man, I'm like, this guy just has it right in so many ways that I keep pushing to the side, because part of my problem up to that point was my love for training kept me from recovering properly. Mm-hmm. I would guilt myself to go train just because I loved it, but yet ultimately at the end of the day, I wasn't progressing as I should. So I think the biggest difference was honestly pulling back. Like, I trained my top sets to failure. I didn't do a ton of extra sets, and I rested more. And again, like, I was laser focused. I was like, I lived like a robot that entire year. And I've lived like a robot for a long time, but there was just like some extra, and also too, because we just had a brand new baby, I lived off of our son's schedule, which is honestly a brand new baby is a bodybuilding schedule to a T. Like, eat every 2 hours, they sleep all the time. Like, it wasn't as good for my wife. She's the one that really took the brunt of it. But I was able to just really operate well in that environment and then make the most of it. And then
you didn't want to get outworked by your son because he was eating. It was like, fuck, I got to eat then.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to let this kid out eat me. He's only been here for a week and a half.
So you got back to basics and you're extremely regimented and dedicated.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And I just removed the fluff. Like, again, I did a lot of extra work in the gym for a lot of years just because I love to train. But once I caught on to the thought process of I love my progress more than I love just being in the gym, that really clicked for me. And then that's when it really just took off.
Well, one of the things I used to always say to myself when I was, pushing it is that famous line that Dorian had where he's like, I go to the gym to get my muscles to grow. That's the only reason. It's you have to stay focused on that. If you just want to go to the gym and work out because you love it and it's mental stress and relief and you're a fan of The Rock and you want to, you know what I mean? But if you have precise goals, there's a fucking reason you're there. There's a reason he was there. And that's what it was all about, was just progress.
Yeah.
And everything's about progress.
Yeah. And, if you're trying to build, a superhuman physique, it's a lot of progress over time.
Yeah.
It's definitely difficult, but I think I love what you said there, because I've had that conversation with, it's always funny, Matt, but I've always tried to have that conversation with high level athletes because they love to work out. And you have to ask, okay, you love it. What, like you said, what do you love more, working out or being the best you can be? Because you can't do both.
Yeah.
Because usually especially with us, because we're psychotic. I mean, I would train 7 days a week. Yeah. There's nothing I would rather do, than go to the gym and beat the shit out of myself, which is why 5 days a week is ballsy as fuck. And I usually get my best results at 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always done a 2 on 1 off. That's always been kind of my style. It just worked. You got one more, Dusty?
I have one more, and I wanted to hit this one because we get it asked all the time, and I feel like it's something that this is one of my annoying things, so we're going to hit it. We get asked all the time about SARMs and how effective they are, and I think a lot of these, I'm kind of answering for you, but a lot of these guys don't realize that they're not used that much. Yeah. So go.
Actually, it's funny. I got a client this week, and he listed out, he was on something called T2 and something else I literally had never heard of. And I said, man, I'm just going to be honest with you. I said, I don't even know what this stuff is. I said, I don't use it. I don't recommend it. And he's like, really? He's like, I thought this was part of what took to get to the next level. I've always looked at it from a lipid and liver standpoint and what they do there. And then I've looked at it from a progress standpoint. So I think it's you're not getting as much progress, but your blood levels are just as equally impacted. So what's the point of it for me? And that's where I've always stood. And obviously the other issue is the companies that produce these things, they're fly-by-night companies. They're here one day, gone the next. They have 25 different credit card processes. You can't use the same credit card. I mean, it's just what are we doing?
You see a bunch of red flags and you're still picking them up.
Yeah. So yeah, I've honestly, not for my women, I don't utilize them. And that's the honest truth.
Yeah, I'm the same. That's why I wanted to ask that, because it's one of those things we get asked. I mean, truthfully, Ron, I ignore the questions on the regular, but we get asked it all the time. And so having someone that coaches so many guys at the top level, I wanted it to get out, because I get to say, I don't know what any of them do. And my other thing that I jam on people is I know what taking testosterone is going to do within my body 10 years from now. Fucking idea what that hocus pocus shit's going to do for me down the line. And if I won't take it, I can't tell a client to take it.
Yeah. There was a period of time where Osterine looked really good on paper for in between cycles. And I remember this was going back to 2010, 2011. And then there was some stuff where Osterine looked good on paper for the females. But now there's so many quality issues and production issues, and the whole underground scene has taken off. So now everyone I have nothing to do with them. But all it amazes me that, people will take 3 or 4 of them together and they're like, I wonder why my liver enzymes are really elevated. And I'm like, well, the fuck? They're like, I'm not on any steroids. I'm like, yeah, but they're still, everything still goes through your filter system, What, you got another one, Dusty, or was that it?
Question for you.
Yes.
Where do you think, in terms of your absolute strength, do you think there's still room there to improve? Have you peaked it out?
Are you talking to Dusty?
Yeah.
What's weird? No, it's the weirdest thing. Now I've had to change my mentality a bit, because I've started to realize that my strength is going to exceed what my body is going to want it to do. because I don't really notice. It actually during this time period, because I stopped filming some stuff because I was literally getting lip from people that were mad that I had a gym access. And so I went to post something up the other day, and I realized that stuff that used to be wacky to me isn't anymore, and it's almost weird. Like yesterday I was doing hack squats on the Arsenal hack, which what that thing weighs.
Yep.
And I'm doing 16 plates. For the first set, I think I got 17 or 18 reps. Second set, I got 16. And I'm like, I remember when that was a fucking 10.
Yeah.
So no, everything is up. So now back to what you were saying about going to the gym, I've had to look and say, okay, but is that making me a better bodybuilder? And in some things the answer was yes, and in some things the answer was no. So I had to kind of change my outlook, and also the risk to reward. I mean, Ron, thank God, is it's bad when Ron's your voice of reason, but he is. It's the best guy I got backing me here.
It's because I was ahead of you. I got all the injuries.
For like 2 years, he's like, dude, I'm telling you, you got to find a way to make lighter weight heavy. And he doesn't mean light and train like a bitch, but when I started finding ways to add weight to a hack squat,
when you got to 10 plates
off the side,
that's when he called me. 10 plates aside on the hack, and I was just thinking, Jesus, this goes in like a couple different directions.
Yeah, and none of them are good. So no, I mean, I think my strength is actually on its way up, but fortunately, and because of some of the names you dropped, I did work with John. I have worked with JP, obviously Dante, John Meadows. I've now got enough in my arsenal that I'm actually finding ways to make things heavier by speed, things like that. I mean, it's gotten interesting because I'm also finding, because that's all fresh shit for me, it whips my ass. I mean, I'll walk out of the gym if I do, like John had me doing stuff like at the end of a workout where I was doing like 6 sets of laterals on the cuffs, cross body. And dude, you can't, thank God I don't have hair to wash because I'd be fucked for hours.
Yeah.
And old me just would go in and be like, all right, put 365 on the shoulder press. I'm going to go ahead and do military. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
So, I don't think the strength has stopped, but I definitely have hit that point where I realize that that's not the only way to just
How do you feel about that, Matt? I mean, I feel like progressive resistance is key.
I feel like that just progressive overload in nature is such a proven system that many people don't even get anywhere near their threshold before they get rid of it. So that's why I wanted to ask Dusty, because he's literally been married to this system for so long. If he felt like his absolute strength had peaked, or if he's not still gaining progress there. And obviously too, I do think that, I mean, even with my leg situation, like I can't just always maximally load, but that doesn't mean I'm not stimulating muscle or I'm not allowing an environment for new tissue to be built. But my general overall thought process is like, I think so many people sell themselves so short because they don't give the system enough time to work. It's not a system. It's not a 6-month system. I mean, as Dusty shows, like it's years and years and years that this system can work. Dorian showed it. It's years, Yeah. And so many people, like, they're not even close to being strong, and they've already abandoned it.
Well, I think that it's the desire for something new, Matt. And I've seen you post about it, and I always laugh. People will ask about when I'm doing like a 3-way split, what I do. It's the same 3-way split I've had since 2009. Yeah. I do the same exercises in the same gym using the same bars that I've always done, and the progress is there. I just don't. It always makes, because I have my clients be like, "Hey, I'm a little bored." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, like,
how are you bored? You need to get 5 more pounds today, or you need to get 1 more rep today. That's not exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't. I'll do the incline barbell press forever because that is a hard movement for me. It's not one of my strongest. And I tend to gravitate actually towards the things that I'm not great at because I just want to be good at them.
Sure.
I'm a terrible presser. I mean, and people will see my pressing and be like, terrible. But I'm like, I'm 300 fucking pounds.
Yeah.
405 is not heavy if you do the math.
Right.
But it's heavy for me. That's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always just remind people that I was at my biggest when I was moving the biggest weights.
Yep. Or like Dante always says, if you want to get big, if you're doing 315 for 10 on anything, when you're doing 405 for 10 with that same movement, you're bigger.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you want to tell people? Are you taking clients if someone wants to get a hold of you?
Yeah, no, I am. I'm definitely taking clients right now. If you guys just want to reach out, Matt Jansen 8 is my Instagram. But I've enjoyed this, guys. I could talk shop with you guys all day long.
For sure.
And I didn't hijack it there for a second. I just was curious to.
No, that's we love getting asked questions. That's a nice twist.
Yeah.
Plus, I find Dusty's strength on some of those movements fascinating. I've been in this game for 30 years. I've seen everything. And, whenever Dusty calls me over, when we're in another city, he's like, hey, can you come and give me a spot? And I walk over and I count the plates. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a good time. This is a good time over here. So you bet, man. And, keep up the videos. Like I said, you're on that list of people where I want my clients watching you train.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. Seriously.
And another thing too is your muscle is built from hard work. You weren't born a huge guy.
Yeah.
And you've put a lot of tissue on with constant improvement. So there's some respect there. So thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the time.
You bet. Anytime. Cheers.
See ya.
Bam.
That was great.
It was great. And I love it. I can always tell when I'm really jammed in because I have no idea what time it is.
Yeah, when I realized
you said we've been over an hour, I'm like, oh fuck, we have.
Yeah, because I think I told him an hour. I think I tell everyone an hour.
Yeah, I lie.
As soon as we get to an hour, I always feel like like shit. These guys probably got something to do. I mean, he's a busy dude.
I go the other way with it. I'll be like, you want to disappoint your fans? Because I'll fucking edit this shit and put it right out there that you don't give a fuck. So you're staying on. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny, though. Everyone seems to jam with it. And I think the cool thing is when you get someone on like Matt, I was excited, man. And I mean, I'm going to go back and actually answer the other questions that I didn't get answered here. But it's great to see the amount of people that immediately like, oh, fuck. This is a guy I wanted to know. And guys, I mean, just so you guys realize that are listening, there's a reason we post the videos and stuff. If you have questions, the only thing I ask, and I'll just speak for Matt on this too, if it's on one of his videos, don't DM him, post the question within, because you're going to ask a question that 5 other people have, and we can answer it. We want to answer it. If I put up a specific training thing, I understand that I'm going to have to answer a bunch of questions, but I like to do it publicly. I'll have guys message me and say, hey, I have a question on that. I'm like, cool, go in there and ask it. So the other 10 guys who aren't going to DM me get the answer. Yeah, you're right. Information for everybody. There's 20 people thinking the same thing. Yeah, when we want to do it, man, I mean, it's fun. I think that gets missed, and I appreciate the fact that fans and followers will reach out and thank us. But I'm like, dude, we're all talking shop about shit we love. Like, you're going to have a hard time finding something I'd rather talk about, and there's definitely nothing else I know about. So we're all good here.
Yeah, definitely nothing else you know about.
That's it, dude. I got a window that's this big. When I'm done with bodybuilding, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to start lying, I guess.
Man, oh man. No, I remember when Matt was telling me about his hip. He was at the Vancouver Pro, like you mentioned last year, and we were chatting at the gym, and I was just like, I had no idea, right? I was like, oh, how's it going, And he's like, oh, good. And we started talking, and all of a sudden we're talking about he's got 3 tears inside his hip and cartilage degeneration, just stuff like that. So it's I know exactly how it feels to go through a long-term injury like that, where you're trying to fix shit. Yeah, but what's cool is I'm glad that he shared it, because I think people are also going to see what someone like that does with it, and I will easily. It's not even a bet. He will be better than he's ever been the next time he's on stage, because he's not going to get there until he is. Yeah, and that's the attitude I want people to see. And like we were talking about during this quarantine, this time off, it's like, okay, don't worry about what you can't do. What can you do? And use that. Even use the fucking anger. I mean, and I know that's kind of an underlying thing with with life right now, between quarantine, between in our world with Luke and all those things. Like, there's a place to put that to advance. Right. And that's what we need to do. I had someone ask me a question last week that we didn't get to, and it was, what have you learned from this quarantine? And I mean, that's a huge, could go anywhere. But the one thing I thought of was business related. Which was? And it came to me this week. And it was, I remember when I worked in the bar for 16 years, right? And it was very common for the bar owners to be, buddy with the fire chief.
Yep.
And they know the sergeant who works that detachment, the cops, and, oh, hey, constable, blah, 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 come on in, have a walk through, because it's a bar. Managing fire code, the fire guys come in, a busy night, nightclubs, there was a lot of police and fire relations. And then, of course, I remember the one bar I worked at for like 9 years, the owner, he was like on all the, the White Ave bar owners board, and, whatever it was, he knew the mayor, that sort of shit. And I was thinking of it from a nightclub point of view. I'm like, well, there's so many regulations here, and there's so many, there's fights, and there's violence, and there's lawsuits, and there's alcohol involved. And it just was like, of course he's into all that shit, But then as a gym owner at that gym, we've just been left alone by everyone.
Yep.
No one bothers us. We just do our thing. And it just didn't really become urgent that we meet them. Know who to call if something happens in regards to like the government shutting down our business.
Right.
My MLA doesn't know who I am. None of the representatives, you know what I mean? Like that stuff.
I do, yeah.
And now I'm like, I am determined to make that change now. I am going to make everyone who's politically involved with where my gym is. I was talking to the boys the other day, and we were all like, yeah, like we got to make sure these people know us by name and know all about the West Coast guys.
No, what's funny about that, though, is I joke about that all the time. And in the opposite thing, I say I am the mayor.
Right.
Because that's always been important to me. And I think because of owning businesses and stuff, but also because when you know people, and when you provide a value to people, they provide a value to you, and if they know you're not an asshole and they know you're not, so, let's just say something happened with me that was not good. I immediately have clout of he doesn't fuck up.
Just buzz someone in.
Oh, it's probably Amazon.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Miss you. You know what I'm saying? So it is important to have all that stuff, and it plays all the way down the line. I mean, I went in with a friend to my butcher the other day to get some specific steaks for the night, and he said, "Oh, we have a care package for you. Do you want it?" And that happens all the time. What it means is anything that was about to go out of date that they can't sell for maximum price, the stuff I enjoy, they bag it, and if I come in that day, it's mine, and if I don't, then they sell it.
Yeah. I've always been good at that stuff.
But that goes all the way up into your business. I mean, you want people. I used to laugh, but when the health service people would come into my stores, they'd come in and go, "Cool."
Yeah.
Boom. Because they knew it was always on point. We were friendly. They'd been in enough that it was literally like, "Hey, we got to check the box."
Yeah.
And it makes life easy. You know what I mean? Or on the flip, if something was wrong, I would call them and say, "Hey, I got a construction guy coming. I want to make sure this is correct." And I'd call Sam directly as opposed to figure out who the fuck needs to look at this before I do something. Right. That's really smart, man. I think a lot of people could benefit from following your lead on that shit. I mean, be on the Chamber of Commerce, do all of those things.
Yeah. So I actually already kind of started. I went to the Chamber of Commerce, the local Chamber of Commerce gala.
Yep.
Yeah, like the gala, it was in like January, I think. Our lawyer had an extra ticket. So nice. Emily and I went, and I remember we're meeting like city councilmen and stuff like that. And I'm like, holy shit, like I gotta make sure we come to this. Because, when it's your first location, you never owned a location before. Yep. You never had a problem with any of those people before, never had a government try to shut you down before. Yeah. I mean, it awakens you, you know? For sure. So, and also talking to all the other gym owners in the area, like there's a bunch of, smaller independent gyms, all around us, all the way out, couple hours out of town even. And we're all in the same health region, right? Mm-hmm. So we're on we got an email list going now, and we're going to get a Facebook group going so that, the next time someone says, "Hey, every gym in the fucking world has to close," right? Yeah. We're going to have an immediate, email destruction button, phone call destruction button, that sort of stuff. So here, just give me 1 sec.
Yep.
Hey, babe. Oh, maybe she went down to get him. Someone's coming down. There we go. Got someone buzzing. Of course, I buzzed them up, but then realized they don't come up. Amazon's just dropping at the front door.
They're like, "Fuck you! I'm not coming up 24 floors to drop you your package."
Down. Yeah.
I'll put it on this step right here if you get your ass down here.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's only proper that we've been staring at our phone a little bit in recognition of remembrance of Luke and how he was always on his phone when Fuad was trying to do interviews.
Hey, that's funny.
I used to always laugh because I'm like, that's totally me. I'm like, well, I got to do this right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that story Matt told about Luke with the trading shirts with Josh.
No, for sure.
And it's funny because it's exactly like kind of what I told, the story about him like commenting on pictures.
Yep.
And it was just kind of who he was, and I just I'm enjoying seeing all those highlight videos and tribute videos, and that, like we mentioned, the podcast that Fuad just did was fantastic, and it's nice to hear what everyone's having to say about the guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was hoping we would end with a little coverage on this too, just because, if there's one thing I can say to those that are like listening and didn't know Luke is whatever you assume and how great you see, it's better. But also take a minute to realize that as much as Luke was a star and we all knew that when he was here, it's been magnified now. So let's not let it be in vain. Like, take that within you and you think of all those things that everyone liked about Luke and try to bring that into your life a little bit. Like, go the extra mile, send that compliment. I always say, like, when you go to a restaurant, it's funny how everybody will call the manager over to bitch, but no one will call him over to say the waitress is kicking ass.
Yeah.
And I think those things, it's funny that we all comment and we realize how great they are, but maybe it's time to say, hey, you know what? Let me be more like that. So other people can be beneficiaries of it, because that's what I came down to, man, after literally 24 hours straight of just trying to wrestle with between my own demons of what I knew I'd been through and then what just happened. Figuring out what to do with the information was difficult. Like, I didn't understand, and that finally became my takeout was, okay, what can I do to benefit myself and everyone around me from this? And that's when I started watching those videos and saying, oh, that's why he, shines so bright. And that's why, I mean, it's funny to listen to how many different videos have said, like, everybody liked him. Everyone thought he was funny. Everyone's motivated by him. Or, Fuad always jokes that he can get away with murder because it didn't really matter what he said because he was Luke.
James told that story about how he had his vape pen on the plane.
Yeah, oh God, I died. And then the lady goes, my friend's a big fan. Can I get a picture? I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
You could be arrested for that shit.
Yeah. Like, and he just said to her, I get really anxious. I had a puff in the bathroom.
And she goes,
Okay, put it away.
Please don't do that anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
For sure, man. That's
a good note to end on, man.
No doubt.
So thanks, Dusty, and thanks to Matt Jansen for a great episode. I was a little nervous about the show today just because I was hoping the mood, wouldn't go kind of. Sometimes you can't control the mood, come with all the good intentions you want and you can't really control the mood. But today went really well, and appreciate that. And, of course, like, share, subscribe, and comment. It really helps us out, pushes that algorithm that Matt was talking about.
That's right, baby.
And it's all about the touches and the comments. So we'll talk to you guys soon. We have another guest book next week.
Yes, we do. We're on fire.
Since most people are still at home, we're trapping them.
Exactly. I know you ain't got shit to do. Get on my damn show.
Yeah, guilt them into coming on. It's all about guilt and shame.
That's right.
Thanks, everybody. Remember, it's just bodybuilding.